Just when I think I'm out, Oklahoma pulls me back in, and such is the case for one Aaryn Parks, and Oklahoma will tell you why on this episode of Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome in. Welcome in. It is Locked On Sooners, your team every single day right here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, Josh Helmer, and this episode brought to us by FanDuel Sportsbook. Check them out, FanDuel.com/Locked On. Well, that's right. Just when you thought you were out, Oklahoma, they pull you back in. Such is the case for one offensive lineman, Aaryn Parks, who on Wednesday put his name into the transfer portal, and not even, I think, a full 48 hours later, comes back and says, you know what, wait a second, I've had a change of heart. I am taking my name out of the transfer portal. Actually, the official social media tweet that he put out was, I'm chasing a national championship, #BoomerSooner, and then the picture in the tweet that he tossed out there had another little note attached to it. It said, Sooner Nation, every setback is an invitation to grow, to evolve, and to come back better. With that being said, I'm back, Boomer Sooner, AP 55 for obviously Aaryn Parks. Aaryn Parks for Oklahoma, not somebody that you look at and you say, okay, automatically factors in to be a starter for OU at either tackle or guard. Here's somebody that really throughout his career has played sparingly. Action in 5 games last season, and of course, most notably in the Cheez-It Bowl, when you were without Wyatt Morris, when you were without Anton Harrison going in, when that duo made their decision to opt out. That was really the moment for Aaryn Parks to shine, and even then, it came after Jacob Sexton early in the contest, who was chosen to start in the Cheez-It Bowl, gets hurt. So Parks wasn't the initial choice to start in that football game, but played in the game. And I think as you graded out what was a different look offensive line for Oklahoma, okay, 6 sacks. We've talked a lot about that coming out of the Cheez-It Bowl immediately and in the weeks and months since. That's a number that, sure, 6 sacks, not going to make anybody feel great, but how about what Gavin Sawchuk was able to do in that game? How about what Javante Barnes was able to do in that game? Oklahoma ran the ball extremely effectively in the game, a pair of 100-yard rushers in Barnes and in Sawchuk, and Parks was a big part of that for Oklahoma. So what does this mean for OU? I think, number one, the obvious is, okay, we feel like Oklahoma is going to be in a pretty good spot at the tackle position with Walter Rouse, who you went and got out of the transfer portal. That was a big-time transfer portal recruiting win for OU. Remember, Tyler Guyton is somebody that you hear, not even myself or John or Locked On Sooners, you've heard it from us, but not even just the local guys and local women, the local reporters on the Oklahoma beat saying it, but you hear that national buzz for Tyler Guyton as somebody that has the type of athleticism to potentially do what a Wyatt Morris and an Anton Harrison just recently here at the offensive tackle positions for Oklahoma did, morph himself into based on sheer athleticism an NFL draft pick very, very quickly with a good 2023 campaign. And that could be the case for Walter Rouse as well. So probably we feel like those are the 2 starters on the respective outsides at tackle for Oklahoma. And then the name that we talked about as well in Sexton, who, of course, is coming off of that ACL injury. The returns that you hear on that front are positive for Oklahoma. I think the expectation is that Sexton's got a chance to be back pretty quickly. But when you're talking about an ACL injury, I know that the medicals, the science is much better today than it was however many years ago. The way you recover is obviously it's better than it used to be. And so it's not crazy to think that Sexton could be back and maybe full go by the time you boot off 2023 or shortly thereafter. That being said, you just look at the offensive tackle board for Oklahoma, and OU's in a better situation with Aaryn Parks as a part of that offensive tackle room for Oklahoma. Here's somebody in Aaryn Parks as well, by the way, that coming out of high school was a guard. You know, you look at the recruiting rankings, and Aaryn Parks was a guard coming out of high school and could factor in at offensive guard for Oklahoma if called upon. So you just look at the overall situation for OU. And if it is Rouse, if it is Guyton, which I think most people would sign up for right here today, I think a lot of people still feel good about Sexton working back from the injury and being ready to roll once the season gets underway. Caden Green, a blue chip freshman signee that people are really, really excited about. If you've got that group, that core set of four, you still feel really nice adding Aaryn Parks into the mix there, whether that's one of the backup roles for either Rouse or Guyton, or just another name that you toss into the mix on the interior of the offensive line for Oklahoma. Savion Byrd's a name that I'm really excited about. McCade Matagher is obviously going to be in the mix at one of the offensive guards for Oklahoma. Caleb Schaefer, somebody that you went and got as well out of the transfer portal, a name to watch at guard. Jake Taylor, Troy Everett. I mean, all of those names that you're looking at on the interior of Oklahoma's offensive line. But could an Aaryn Parks, could he still be a name that, based on some of what we saw again in that bowl game, where I loved the tenacity that Oklahoma's offensive line played with. Again, the 6 sacks, don't have to keep running in circles on that point. You get it. I get it. Everybody gets it. That's a number that obviously needs to improve, but just the physicality that Oklahoma played with at the point of attack, I thought that was one of the most encouraging signs of the Cheez-It Bowl versus Florida State. And again, Aaryn Parks, a big part of that. So whether it's at tackle, whether it's at guard, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that Aaryn Parks could be part of that top 5 for Oklahoma, or top 8 or 9, whatever number you want to say on the frontline starters for Oklahoma, or that 2 deep for Oklahoma at the offensive line. So somebody that on Wednesday makes the decision, hey, I'm entering the transfer portal, and then a couple of short days later decides, you know what, I want to be a part of tracking down a national championship. I want to be a part of tracking down conference championships, this Big 12 championship with Oklahoma, in a world where there's so much changing in terms of musical chairs left and right for folks. I think it's okay to stop and applaud Aaryn Parks for saying, you know what, made a decision to enter the portal, maybe didn't hear necessarily everything that I was hoping to hear or thought that I was going to hear straight away. Or maybe I just, as I heard from a couple of folks, stepped back and thought, you know what, I do want to come back to the University of Oklahoma. So I think it's worth celebrating Aaryn Parks for making the decision to come back to OU. And I don't think it's something that we just turn our nose up at either and say, hey, Walter Rouse, Tyler Guyton, guaranteed starters, and then the interior of the offensive line, guaranteed starters. If it's a depth piece for Oklahoma, Aaryn Parks very much a welcome piece back, and I think an important piece perhaps back for Oklahoma in 2023. So it looked like maybe the transfer portal was going to take it away from Oklahoma and its offensive line. Instead, the transfer portal, because of Aaryn Parks' decision to explore but come right back, the transfer portal giveth right back to Bill Bedenbaugh in Oklahoma. And again, I don't think this is just necessarily something that you just say is light news for Oklahoma. I think this is potentially a big deal, a really good piece of news for Oklahoma. Commitments that we still haven't gotten to dive into just yet. Names we've been talking about, well, at least one of them quite a bit, in Xavier Robinson, in-state kid. What do these mean for Oklahoma? We'll dive into that. But first, let me tell you, FanDuel Sportsbook. That's right, FanDuel.com/lockedon, where you can dive into the action or take your first cut at the action, your first swing at betting Major League Baseball over at FanDuel, where you can get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose back. So that's $200 you can spend betting on everything from the money line to the over under to who you think is going to hit the first home run. All of those fun little prop bets. Yeah, they're there. They're available, and it's all available on a on an app that's safe, secure, super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. Nobody wants to wait around for their cash, right? Give me my winnings now, and you'll get that with FanDuel. That is FanDuel Sportsbook, FanDuel.com/locked on to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/locked on. FanDuel, an official partner of Major League Baseball. So a couple of commitments that we haven't gotten to dive into just yet here on Locked On Sooners. And I know we're backtracking just a moment on this, but let's explore this. Xavier Robinson, in-state kid for Oklahoma, and OU wins out on the commitment here for Xavier Robinson. The primary competitor was, of course, Iowa State in this recruitment for Xavier Robinson, though Oklahoma State got a final official visit for Robinson. So they tried to make a push late. Oklahoma State did. And yet Iowa State, all along in this recruitment, Oklahoma was playing catch up. And actually a number of these other schools that were in on this list for Xavier Robinson were playing catch up too, because Iowa State was the first FBS offer by a couple of months for everyone. So those relationships for Xavier Robinson with Iowa State, they were legitimate, they were strong, and it wasn't just an easy Oklahoma wins out in this recruitment for Xavier Robinson. So that part, some of the names that Oklahoma beat out in this recruitment, again, Iowa State, as we discussed, Oklahoma State. How about Colorado, Houston, Kansas State, and Notre Dame was in on the mix for Xavier Robinson for a little bit there. So some big-time Power 5 names, and obviously some big-time Power 5 names within the region for Oklahoma that the Sooners were able to beat out in this recruitment for Xavier Robinson. If you don't know, then you should know. Xavier Robinson with Carl Albert, a lot of rushing yards a season ago to the tune of 2,594 rushing yards, 39 rushing touchdowns, 185 yards per game. And, of course, he was a part with Carl Albert of something that they've done a lot of, and that's win a state championship. And all of a sudden, he's going to be a part of a pretty exciting football team this next year, too, with Kevin Sperry arriving as well. That's going to be a team that a lot of people in the Metro will want to follow. But Xavier Robinson, I really, the more and more that I watch of Xavier Robinson, I like the upright running style. He was asked after he committed, I don't know if he was prompted or if he just talked about Adrian Peterson of his own volition. The video that I saw had it spliced up. So I would imagine maybe he was prompted about what he knew about Oklahoma football, and Adrian Peterson came to mind. But, obviously you don't say this without understanding what you're saying, but dare I say just kind of the way he runs looks like an Adrian Peterson. Now, Adrian Peterson's, of course, a special talent. I'm not saying that Xavier Robinson overnight's turning into Adrian Peterson, but that upright running style, there's some similarities there, which is kind of fun. Or, your all-time upright type rushers. That's the style that Xavier Robinson runs with. It's fun. I think he's got a nice change of direction to him. He's definitely a legitimate big-time athlete. I like the fact that you look at what maybe this running back commit group is going to wind up being for Oklahoma. OU, folks, still leads for Caden Durham. Oklahoma still leads for Taylor Tatum. If you look at just the crystal balls that are out there, the Rivals Futurecasts that are out there, the On3 predictions that are out there, it feels like there's still some pretty strong momentum that this could be a 3 running backs commits class for Oklahoma. And don't just immediately say, okay, Durham and Tatum, because of the recruiting rankings, are going to wind up being better backs than Xavier Robinson. Tatum looks like a very, very special talent, but man, I'm telling you, because Xavier Robinson does different things, because he's that upright, punishing, physical runner, and because of things we've talked about in the past right here on this channel, that you can never have too many running backs, right? You can never have too many guys divvying up the carries, too many guys that take the wear and tear off of one another. So that part of it, the fact that Xavier Robinson is a different runner than both a Caden Durham and a Taylor Tatum, if and when hopefully that comes to fruition in this class, that's something that Oklahoma fans should be very, very excited about. Go flip on the tape. You will be you will be fired up about what Xavier Robinson brings to this class for Oklahoma. I liked a lot of what he had to say in his post commitment ceremony as well with Sooners Illustrated. I think is the video that I saw, though I'm sure there's all sorts of coverage out there from a number of different Oklahoma entities. So don't want to shortchange anybody, but I just saw it from Sooners Illustrated. So proper credit where proper credit is due. He said he's ready to start being a recruiter in this class for Oklahoma. Everybody likes that, right? When you have somebody that commits and they say, yes, I will be getting on the phone. And there's a couple of names that I've got earmarked, and a couple of those names for Robinson were, well, David Stone, who everybody wants to commit in this class to get on the phone with. And then he said Michael Patterson McDonald. That was another name that came to mind for somebody that immediately he's getting after it. He's trying to convince these guys to come be a part of it. And I liked what he said too in this regard. He said the quote, they're on the way, and not specifically about those two and David Stone and Michael Patterson McDonald, just in general terms about turning into a recruiter for Oklahoma. He said, these players, they're on the way. They just don't know it yet. So I like that about Robinson. I think that's kind of fun. And again, you look at how he's rated, consensus 3-star kid, top 40 running back according to 24/7 Sports, Rivals, and ESPN, and a top 15 talent in the state of Oklahoma by everybody. That's 24/7 Sports, Rivals, On3, ESPN, and I'm going to round up here, a top 5 running back or top 5 player, I should say, excuse me, top 5 player in the state of Oklahoma per 24/7 Rivals and ESPN. So there's Xavier Robinson. Wyatt Gilmore. Who is Wyatt Gilmore? Feel like probably Oklahoma fans going into this commitment maybe hadn't heard as much about Wyatt Gilmore, and yet you should be excited about Wyatt Gilmore too. Here's somebody, I was reading Gabe Brooks's comments over at 24/7 Sports, his recruiting breakdown, and just real quickly off the top, Wyatt Gilmore, 4-star kid according to 24/7 Sports, number 22 edge nationally. Edge type, obviously defensive end, edge rusher is what they say when they say edge. Number 2 player in Minnesota per 24/7 Sports, and a top 10 player from the state of Minnesota by every recruiting service. Top 3 player in the state of Minnesota according to 24/7, Rivals, and ESPN. So thought very, very highly of out of the state of Minnesota in terms of folks that are going to move on into major college football. Wyatt Gilmore in the state of Minnesota is regarded as one of the best out of the state of Minnesota. His list, some of the schools that Oklahoma won out over, the perceived, I guess, other front runners here would have been Miami and Minnesota, though listen to all these other northern schools that were in the mix. No small feat, right? When you're winning recruiting wars over schools that are closer, have a little bit more of that home field advantage. Iowa State, both Kansas and Kansas State are closer for Gilmore out of Minnesota. Missouri, Nebraska, Purdue, Wisconsin. So a bunch of those schools that were a little bit closer, Oklahoma wins out over. And Oregon, by the way, was in this recruitment mix as well for Wyatt Gilmore. I liked what Gabe Brooks said, though. Said has added some good weight to get up to. The 24/7 Sports has Gilmore listed 6'4", 240 pounds. And initially when he went through his, I guess, camp evaluations, I don't know if this was probably, I'm guessing the summer of 2022, that at 220, great first step, very athletic in that regard, has a self-reported 35-inch vertical jump. So this is somebody in Gilmore that, yes, he's a leaper. He can jump, and that shows up in that first step, explosive first step. One thing you like hearing, added that good weight, 20 pounds, and the explosiveness per Brooks and others that have been on the evaluation scene, still there. First step, still very explosive, has added that good weight, and looks like the same athlete as before. And actually, there was some talk. I don't think this is going to be the case. I think that Gilmore translates outside for Oklahoma, but there's some talk from some of the evaluators that here's somebody in Gilmore that actually could maybe move inside a little bit for Oklahoma or others if down the road he wanted to, or if coaching staffs down the road wanted to, that it looks like he's added that weight on in a fashion to where maybe that could be a possibility. But I think the plan for Oklahoma will be edge rush, defensive end for Wyatt Gilmore. So all of a sudden, you look at where Oklahoma's at in this recruiting class and climbing up those charts with 11 commits overall now in this class, 32nd nationally. And you just think about the little rash of commitments that Oklahoma has been on. We talked about it in our last episode with Ivan Carrion, a flip from Texas Tech there. But before that, commitments from James Nesta, commitment from Dozie Ezukama, another wide receiver in this class. And then, of course, Gilmore and Robinson here. And you think about those big-time blue chip commitments down the road, perhaps that could be out there with a David Stone, with a Winery, and with some others that obviously are big-time targets in this class for Oklahoma. And this thing feels like it's trending once again. Top 10 class for OU. It's on that similar trajectory. Now, need those big-time commitments that we spent so much time talking about to be the I don't even want to say the cherry on top, but just the meat and potatoes of this class for Oklahoma. And you've got some other really, really good pieces in it. So I think there's some parts to be excited about here in this class in both Robinson and Gilmore, and then just this little flurry that Oklahoma has been on the recruiting trail. Phil Steele, what has Phil Steele got to say about Oklahoma? I'll be curious to get John's thoughts on this in detail when he gets back from vacation. But Phil Steele, you know this, author of what some consider to be the offseason Bible of college football, and maybe the in-season Bible of college football, but definitely one of the most popular long-running college football preview magazines out there. Phil Steele, he's in that mix, right? Maybe the greatest college football magazine, just based on sheer longevity. But what does he have to say about Oklahoma? His magazine just dropped, and he's got Oklahoma as the number 2 most improved team heading into this 2023 season. Yeah, I would say music to the ears of Oklahoma fans, and that's kind of what we've been hoping and saying, that Oklahoma's got a good chance for that to be the case. If Oklahoma is the number 2 most improved team in the country, dare I say, if that's what happens for Oklahoma, that they're going to be right in the thick of the mix to win the Big 12 championship, to accomplish a lot of the things that we're hopeful that Oklahoma can do in 2023. I mean, I would say so. I don't know who, I don't have the list in front of me from Phil Steele, who he has as the number 1 most improved team in the country, but you tell me that Oklahoma is the 2nd most improved team in the country, and I'm going to say that OU's got a chance to go play in that Big 12 championship game and very seriously contend for a college football playoff berth. I think that would have to be the case. Here's the rest of what Phil Steele has to say about Oklahoma, by the way. He's got OU ranked 2nd best out of all the 6 Big 12 teams that he has inside of his preseason top 40. Not preseason top 25, taking this thing out just a little bit further, but preseason top 40. He's got OU number 20. He's got Oklahoma number 20. Texas is 11th. TCU 25th. Kansas State 29th, and Texas Tech 39th. Again, he's got Oklahoma as one of his surprise teams going into this season, which if you're saying most improved teams for Oklahoma, I guess probably that means you're going to be one of the most surprising teams to some, just because a lot of folks, I guess, are still in that wait and see with Oklahoma, and it is what it is. You're coming off a 6-7 season, so anything that approaches or eclipses double-figure wins, not saying it's going to be surprising to me. I expect that for Oklahoma going into this season, but for others, yeah, perhaps that could be surprising out there. But he's got Oklahoma number 8, Phil Steele does, in that list of 2023 surprise teams. Texas, he must be really high on Texas. He's got Texas number 3 on that surprise team list. And interestingly enough, TCU number 11 on that list. So I guess just surprisingly still good for TCU, according to Phil Steele. Some of the reasons why he has a positive outlook for Oklahoma going into this season, per Phil Steele, he says Venables knows defense and was unhappy with how that group performed a year ago. Yeah, you can say that again. I would imagine that Brent Venables understands that the defense not where he wants it wanted it to be a season ago. He cites Oklahoma's remaking of the roster. We know that 56 of the 71 players who played in the Bob Stoops coached Alamo Bowl gone from the roster, or just, I guess, the 71 players that not who played in the Alamo Bowl, but that were a part of, I guess, traveling to the Alamo Bowl. 56 of the 71, it's an overhaul, baby. The Sooner offensive unit, still a potent group per Phil Steele. And, of course, Dylan Gabriel's back at quarterback to lead that. He likes the running back position for Oklahoma. And then the schedule for Phil Steele. He notes the 2023 schedule is favorable, which we've, if you've been following along on Locked On Sooners, yeah, it is a favorable schedule for Oklahoma. Don't see Kansas State. You don't see Baylor. You don't see Texas Tech, who a lot of people, and again, right here, Phil still has in his preseason top 40 in the Red Raiders. So, I mean, that's a couple of teams in there that a lot of people think are going to be toward the top of the standings in the Big 12, and Oklahoma doesn't have them on their schedule. And, oh, by the way, per Phil Steele, the Sooners only play one top team in the Big 12. That's Texas away from home. So his breakdown, I think this is kind of interesting. His position breakdowns for Oklahoma. And like I said, when John's back from vacation, we can do a deep dive, revisit this, what John thinks about it, and, maybe what we think is appropriate in terms of these position rankings or what we would change. But here's just your top to bottom breakdown of how Phil still feels Oklahoma's position groups stack up versus the rest of the Big 12. Quarterback, he has ranked second and 21st nationally. Running back, he's got Oklahoma ranked tied first. I think there's a good chance, that with Javante Barnes and Gavin Sawchuk and Smothers and Hicks and Major, that, Oklahoma's got a chance to be really, really good at running back in the backfield. Receivers, there's probably quite a few people that wouldn't feel this way that Phil Steele does. I like to see that he's got Oklahoma where he's got him. He's got him third in the Big 12 right now, and I'd say there'd probably be a lot of other people out there that would be a little bit more skeptical about Oklahoma's position group there. Offensive line, again, not as concerned maybe as others would be about the loss of Awanye Morris and Anton Harrison. He's got Oklahoma's offensive line second in the Big 12. How about this? Defensive line tied first for Oklahoma. He's also high on Oklahoma's defensive backs at third. And then this would be the one that I'd like to dive into with John. I guess it's just wait until you see a little bit more. But with Danny Stutzman back, with Kanik possibly emerging, with Kobe McKenzie and some of the other names, Kip Lewis, whoever you would look at linebacker there, along with a Dasan McCullough. If you mix McCullough into the linebackers, if you don't say cheetahs, just like your hybrid safety, if you mix that in with linebacker, which I think most of us would, he's got Oklahoma back at 5 at linebacker. So a little bit further down the board, but some interesting thoughts from Phil Steele. That's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Sooners. Don't go anywhere, though, folks. We got plenty more. There's so much on the recruiting trail, some news and nuggets out there, folks that have tossed Oklahoma into their final top 4, top 5, so on and so forth. Some big decision days coming up out on the recruiting trail, and plenty else we can talk about with Oklahoma football and more. Who knows? Maybe we'll get some positive softball news before we know it right here. But, hey, that's going to do it for my partner, John Williams. I'm Josh Helmer. Until next time, Boomer Sooner, everybody.